From the Florida Today newsroom, this is the Florida Today Show.
The election is over and most of those crazy amendments passed. A 5-year-old makes the Florida Tech swim team. And the European Space Agency is giving a boost to the Orion project. Hello, Space Coast, and welcome to the Florida Today Show. I'm Christina LaFortune, and today is Sunday, November 11th. It was a tense election season that ended with a few nail-biters in both the race for governor and the U.S. Senate. But it was truly the 12 amendments to the state's constitution that took center stage for us at Florida Today, with hundreds of thousands of voters turning to our website to learn just what each amendment was for. In the wee hours of the morning Wednesday, Florida Today's Rob Landers brought us the result of each of the amendments. Watch.
Close, but not close enough for an additional homestead exemption. Capturing only 58.1 of the required 60% approval in the statewide vote, Amendment 1 has failed. Amendment 1 would have raised the homestead property tax exemption by $25,000 for homes worth more than $100,000. That would have exempted the value between $100,000 and $125,000 of a home that serves as an owner's primary residence. There are still 2 other homestead exemptions, for the first $25,000 of the assessed property value, and for the value between $50,000 and $75,000. There is now a permanent cap on annual increases for non-homestead property tax assessments. That's because with more than 60% approval in the statewide vote, Amendment 2 has passed. Amendment 2 permanently places a 10% cap on the annual increase of non-homestead property tax assessments. It won't change current law, but it puts protections in place so exorbitant increases don't impact renters, business owners, and consumers. Owners of non-homestead properties could have faced, should the amendment have failed, paying taxes on the full value of properties beginning in January 2019. Casino gambling is firmly in the hands of Florida voters. That's because with more than 60% of the statewide vote, Amendment 3 has passed. This amendment gives voters the exclusive right to decide whether a new casino can open in the state. It takes that right away from the Florida legislature, which has failed in recent years to reach an agreement on the issue. The amendment categorizes card games, casino games, and slot machines as casino gambling, and requires anyone who wants to build a casino to get hundreds of thousands of signatures to get it on the ballot and then hope for voter approval. This makes it more difficult for any horse track wishing to expand its gaming to do so. It also makes it more difficult for dog tracks to expand, but with Amendment 13's passage, dog tracks in Florida will be short-lived. Former felons won't have to wait to get their voting privileges restored. Why? Because with more than 60% of the statewide vote, Amendment 4 has passed. Amendment 4 restores voting rights to former felons who served their sentence, including parole and probation, with the exception of those convicted of murder and sexual offenses. Currently, former felons must wait at least 5 years after completing their sentences to ask the Florida Clemency Board, made up by the governor and the cabinet, to restore their rights. Amendment 4 impacts 1.5 million Floridians. A 2/3 vote is now required to raise state taxes. That's because with more than 60% of the statewide vote, Amendment 5 has passed. Amendment 5 requires a 2/3 vote in the Florida House and Senate instead of a simple majority to raise state taxes. Florida is improving victims' rights. With more than 60% of the statewide vote, Amendment 6 has passed. This bundled amendment included 3 separate proposals. It expands the scope of victims' rights under the Florida Constitution, including victims' rights to due process under what's known as Marsy's Law. It raises the mandatory retirement age of Florida judges from 70 to 75, and it prohibits state courts from deferring to an administrative agency's interpretation of a state statute or rule. Paramedics and EMTs will get mandatory payment of death benefits. Why? Because with more than 65% approval, Amendment 7 has passed. Amendment 7 is yet another that bundles multiple proposals. The amendment requires mandatory payment of death benefits and waives some educational expenses to qualifying survivors of first responders and military members who die performing official duties, which is already in state law, and adds paramedics and emergency medical technicians to the list. It requires supermajority votes by university trustees and state university system boards of governors to raise or impose fees, and it establishes the existing Florida college system as a constitutional entity. No offshore drilling and no more vaping in the workplace. Why? Because with more than 60% of the statewide vote, Amendment 9 has passed. Amendment 9, a bundled Constitution Revision Commission amendment, prohibits oil and gas drilling for exploration or extraction in offshore areas of state-controlled waters. It also prohibits the indoor use of e-cigarettes and vaping devices. The amendment doesn't, however, restrict use of these devices inside private residences, nor in standalone bars or hotel rooms where smoking is allowed. Legislators will have to get ready to work in January in even-numbered years. Why? Because with more than 63% approval in the statewide vote, Amendment 10 has passed. Amendment 10 is a Constitutional Revision Commission proposal that rolls 4 separate government regulatory proposals into one amendment that requires the legislature to start its annual session in January instead of March during even-numbered years, creates a counterterrorism and security office within the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, requires the state to have a Department of Veterans Affairs, which already exists, and requires that all 67 counties must elect their sheriff, tax collector, election supervisor, and clerk of courts. There's quite a bit of language dropping out of the Florida Constitution. That's because with more than 62% of the statewide Amendment 11 has passed. Amendment 11 has 3 parts. It deletes constitutional language preventing non-citizens from buying, selling, owning, or inheriting property. It repeals the Savings Clause, making sentencing changes equal for people convicted of the same crime. And it deletes language approving a high-speed rail. Florida now has one of the strictest lobbying rules in the country. With more than 78% of the statewide vote, Amendment 12 has passed. This amendment expands ethics rules for public officials, both elected officials and government employees, including judges. The new rules are complex, but essentially they ban officials and employees from lobbying the state and federal government during their terms of office or employment and for 6 years after. Amendment 12 also prohibits these officials from using their position for private gain. If you like betting on greyhounds, get your bets in while you can. Thanks to nearly 69% of statewide approval, Amendment 13 has passed. Amendment 13 ends commercial greyhound and other dog racing by 2020, but people in Florida would continue to wager on races occurring in other states. 40 states currently ban the activity, and now West Virginia, Alabama, Arkansas, Iowa, and Texas will be the only ones where dog racing is legal and operational. Racing has been dying, but Florida law requires tracks to race dogs in order to keep their license to offer more profitable card games and slot machines, which they can still offer with Amendment 13's passage.
The power plant that will propel NASA's first Orion crew capsule around the moon has arrived from Europe to Kennedy Space Center. Orion's European service module arrived this week in an Antonov cargo aircraft at KSC from Airbus facilities in Bremen, Germany. The service module includes a main engine and thrusters that will allow Orion to escape Earth's orbit out to the moon, maneuver in space, and return home. The module also provides power, air conditioning, and water and oxygen for the crew module. At KSC's Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, the service module will be joined with a crew module to form the first Orion to be launched by NASA's Space Launch System rocket in about 2 years. On November 16th, KSC will host NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, European Space Agency Chief Jan Werner, and other dignitaries to celebrate the space module's arrival in Florida. Look for coverage of Friday's Orion event on FloridaToday.com. When we come back, a 5-year-old is making a splash with the Florida Tech swim team. Stay with us.
The cops say that you did it. They say they did get the right person, but you know what? To get you, they lied, and the witnesses lied. and pretty strong pieces of evidence that did not point to you or explained away or discounted. And so all that's left is for you to sit in prison year after year after year and say, but I did not do this. Is that justice? You decide. Coming soon, Season 4 of Murder on the Space Coast, where justice lies.
Welcome back to the Florida Today Show. I'm Christina LaFortune. Team Impact partners with Florida Tech Athletics to allow a 5-year-old boy facing a serious illness to become a part of the swim team. Florida Today photographer Tim Short met with the boy's mom and Panthers coach to bring you this touching story.
Proved me and Grandpa wrong. I'm Courtney Warner. I'm AJ's mom. AJ the Tank just turned 5 on October 30th. AJ has a rare gene mutation called MYH2. It is in the connective tissue and muscular family and also affects the eyes. At this time, there's only 2 known cases overseas in Arabic Jerusalem. He also has multi-mini-core congenital myopathy that is in the muscular dystrophy family too. There's only 2,000 cases known at this time of that, and AJ is the youngest at this time documented for the multi-mini-core congenital myopathy, and he also has an unknown immune disorder from the IPAX family that affects the immune system, where it fights the tissues of the immune system.
My name is David Dent. I'm the head swim coach here at Florida Tech. We recently partnered with Team Impact. What Team Impact is they partner kids with medical disease with the local colleges so that we can give them some more support. So we're basically just adding AJ to our family here that we have at Florida Tech, and we're real excited for this opportunity. AJ is going to fit right in with the goofy characters we have on our team. They're all Disney lovers. I know AJ loves Disney, so it's going to be a really good partnership, and we're real excited for the future. Today was the first introduction, so we got to meet AJ for the first time. We showed him around our facility, we showed him around campus, we took him into some of the engineering buildings and just let him play with some of the neat toys they have.
You can both play yourself.
So AJ's more than welcome to come to every single practice we have. He can come to every single meet, and he's basically just going to be a part of our team. We're going to be holding a draft day next week where we'll be signing him onto our team. He'll be with us for 2 years, and then at the end of the 2 years he'll be participating in like a graduation, so he'll walk with our seniors during the senior ceremony and everything. So it's a 2-year partnership.
Oh wow, now I can't.
Now I can never leave.
I can't leave. I don't want to fly away.
What is the meaning behind a hat? In the musical play Crowns, taking the stage at the Henniger Center's Black Box Theater, a hat is the jumping off point for the exploration of Black history and identity. Watch.
My name is Angela Naomi, and I played Jeanette in the musical Crowns, which is making its Brevard County premiere at the Henniger Center in downtown Melbourne. We open November 9th and we close November 18th. So be sure to get your tickets. Go to henniger.org and be prepared for a soul-stirring, hand-clapping, feet-stomping, uplifting performance of the musical Crowns. You can also call the box office at 321-723-8698. And it is playing upstairs in the Black Box Theater at the Henniger Center.
Our crowns have been bought and paid for. All we have to do is wear them.
It's very exciting, and it also brings back good memories of my childhood and growing up in a small country church in Lumber Bridge, North Carolina.
Crowns will be on stage in the Henniger Center Black Box through November 18th. For tickets or more information, call 321-723-8698 or visit henniger.org. And continuing its run for one more weekend is the Surfside Playhouse production of Young Frankenstein, based on the Mel Brooks comedy classic.
Good evening, and welcome, Dr. Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
Ah, yes, of course. Steve.
Hi, I'm Katie McCall, and I'm playing Inga in Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein at Surfside Playhouse. It is running from November 2nd to November 18th, 3 weekends.
And I am your housekeeper, Frau Bluehair.
How do you do?
For tickets, you can call 321-783-3127 or go to surfsideplayhouse.com. Inga is a very fun character to play. She is very iconic. Everybody knows her from the movie. She's definitely very flirtatious. I get to jump around and bounce around. So much fun. It's probably the most fun part I've ever played. Lots of singing and dancing.
Like Laurel and Hardy, like Coke and Bacardi, like Juliet and Romeo, ebb and flow too.
I love the movie. All Mel Brooks is amazing. This is definitely one of my favorites of him. And when I heard I got this part, I was completely in shock, because I never thought that I would be able to portray such an amazing, iconic, famous character.
Listen to me. You are not evil. You are good.
And I am your housekeeper, Frau Bluehair.
Young Frankenstein will be on stage at Surfside Playhouse through November 18th. For tickets or more information, call 321-783-3127 or visit surfsideplayers.com. When we come back, what is your body telling you? Stay with us.
Create the career of your dreams with a degree from Eastern Florida State College. Earn a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, or college certificate in growing job fields like healthcare, business, and computer technology. On campus or online, you can find inspiration and success. Anything's possible where Titans rise. Eastern Florida State College.
Welcome back to the Florida Today Show. I'm Christina LaFortune. When your body is speaking to you, are you listening? Florida Today columnist Lillian McDermott is in the studio to talk about the ways our body tries to communicate with us, and that all we have to do for a healthier and happier life is to listen.
And joining us in the studio, as always, is one of our favorite guests, Lillian McDermott. Lillian, thank you as always for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I love it.
All right, and it's that time of month where we dissect Lillian's health column, which comes out in the health section the second Thursday of every month, and it's online at floridatoday.com/health right now. So Lillian, I opened my inbox this weekend and I find a title that, or a column that was titled, "What is your body trying to tell you?" So tell us a little bit, what is your body trying to tell you, and why did you start out with that this month?
Well, as you remember, last month I came to you and I said, you know, we don't know what's going on with my brain. Well, you know, sometimes our body speaks to us, and fortunately for me, I can start by saying that everything is good. We're keeping an eye on, we're going to call it a freckle, what was happening. So if people want to catch up, they can read my article from last month. But our body is constantly speaking to us. What is my body speaking to me and saying to me? Like, for example, the freckle in my brain. So with my freckle in my brain, it's telling me possibly that I might be stressed, that maybe there are some issues that are emotional, that are affecting my body. 95% of all disease has an emotional component. And some doctors come and say more than that. So we just need to listen. What we call a symptom and a doctor calls a diagnosis is our body and the divine speaking to us.
Well, you throw in a quote early on in there, and I had to go look up who the person was that you had quoted, but you said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality. And that was from Seneca, who I learned is an ancient philosopher. He was the son of another Greek person named Seneca, although it says he was from Spain, so I imagine they moved around Europe. So anyhow, after I looked it up and then thought about that quote, you know, I think that the point that you make is really a good one, in that you go to a doctor, you're not really sure what's wrong, and then they give you your options and your mind just runs wild, and it seems worse because you don't really know what's going on. Right?
Absolutely. You know, by the time we are graduated from college, I read an article that says that we hear no, not just no, 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 over 100,000 times before we go off to college. So we tend to gravitate towards what could go wrong, what's the worst case scenario. But what I encourage people to do is to give what could go right and the best side of what could happen as well. So be an equal opportunity employer of what could go right. And so the whole thing is we get this diagnosis and then we think we're dead, or we think something is wrong, and we act as if something is wrong instead of saying, you know, I'm going to just leave that until I have all my facts. And what can I do with information that I have and naturally? How is my body speaking to me naturally?
And then you say that, you know, normally we go to a doctor and you do what they tell you right away. But as you're saying, you know, found some other information and you wanted to make a decision rather than acting right away. And then you move to another point about, you know, physical being and people's bodies and their lifestyles. And you say that, you know, most people just will, when something's wrong, they take a pill rather than doing what they really should be doing, and that's change your lifestyle, change your habits, and things like that. So, you know, what I know a lot of people, you use the example like diabetes, you know, somebody who has diabetes takes diabetic medicine when really, in essence, you probably could have helped stave that off with a better diet and things like that. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that taking the pill is wrong, because there are supplements we can take, there are different lifestyle changes we can make, but there are cases where in a short term we can take medication that'll bridge us through. But the reality is that if we do some things ourselves, if we change our lifestyle. For example, most people, I use diabetes because it's so common, so many people get this diagnosis. Well, what is the body telling you? Well, the body's telling you that you're abusing, something that you're abusing is causing your pancreas not to respond very well. And so if you're listening to the body, because our bodies are made perfectly, then what can we do to change that? So if you have diabetes, chances are the diet can be changed, perhaps maybe attitudes and sleep and stress. There's so many different things. And if you listen to my show, you'll also discover that there are so many different ways that we can heal by just simply changing to a whole food plant-based lifestyle. Within 2 weeks, you'll start feeling considerable changes where you won't even have to use medication. Not a guarantee, but there's so many different ways that we can 100% change our lifestyle and turn things around for us.
Yeah, you know, as somebody, I've always considered myself a fitness advocate. I've been very involved in staying in shape and eating well my whole life, and I think that a lot of that is why I've had, you know, a pretty good health over my life. But I love one of the questions you ask, and I think maybe my favorite part of this article was when you asked the question, what if there was no pill for your disease? Would you then change the way you live your life? And I think that's a fantastic point to make, because the easy thing is, you know, take the pill and hopefully you can regulate things. But boy, what if that didn't exist? Then you would have to make that change.
Absolutely. And I wish that people would start with that. But what happens is we're told by our doctor, okay, this is what I'm going to prescribe for you. And so we take that, and that pill becomes our permission to continue doing the same things that we're doing. Instead of stopping and saying, okay, this symptom is my body, the divine, speaking to me. What is it saying? What am I doing? Let's take honest inventory. Can I change things? If there wasn't a pill, I would do everything I possibly can. But that pill gives me permission to continue to misbehave or treat my body with disrespect.
Yeah, and you know, a good example would be, you know, I'll use a friend, I won't name him, but in his late 30s, he started having chest pains and what was essentially like a mini stroke at like 37.
Wow.
And instead of making lifestyle changes, now 4 years later, he's about 100 pounds heavier. So, you know, and we kind of give him a hard time because he's a friend, but I always tell him, you know, honestly, I want to see you do something about this. And, you know, there are always things you say, excuses and things like that, but there's no excuse once you're dead. So, you know, you can either change that now or, you know, you're not going to be around to see your kids grow up. So, you know, things like that, they really hit home to me. They, you know, that's really strong for me.
And you know what, Tim? With diabetes or even cancer or other diseases, there's kind of like a warning. It's like a hurricane, right? You know there's something forming. But when it comes to heart, the first sign that you might have is a heart attack and you're dead. That's the first symptom. But there are signs, there's stress, there's different ways that we can alleviate. Now, obviously, when somebody has gained 100 pounds, and I'd like to go with another statistic that shows that people who are morbidly obese, and I've written about this before, have been, well, I'm not saying that this happened as 85%, this may not be your friend, but I'm saying to make us aware, if I am morbidly obese, chances are 85% chance that I was violated or molested or inappropriately touched or something traumatic happened in my life that was inappropriate. And so going back and healing those wounds, forgiving and starting over and trying to kind of like not right the wrong, but embrace what has happened and use it with the questions of 100% responsibility that I have on the show, on my website, which helps us decide how did I create this and not in a mean-spirit way or blame, shame, fault, or duty, but in a way that I can start taking ownership and not blame anybody else for my life. I can say, you know what, I'm taking 100% ownership, and that may be part of what we need to look at in our life.
And then later in the article, and we won't have time to go through it all right now, but you're very good at coming up with these acronyms for things, and you have an acronym for disease where each letter is diagnosis, intuition, seek, educate, awareness, select, and empower. So to find out what all of that means, make sure you go on the website at floridatoday.com/health or at whenyounneedafriend.com and read Lillian's column and see what that's all about. So Lillian, you know, we've just got less than a minute here, so I did want to open the floor and just let you make a closing point, you know, for your column for the readers.
Oh, wow. Thank you for the warning. So my advice or my suggestion is not to wait until we have to go to the emergency room to have rescue surgery or something to that effect. We can control our life. We can choose what we want. There's the great philosopher Meatloaf sings the song, you know, I would do anything for, do you remember?
But I won't do that.
Yes, but what is that? What is that? Is it love? Is it marriage? Is it your health? Is it a relationship? Is it reconciliation? Do whatever it takes to live the life of your dreams.
All right, Lillian, well, we appreciate it. And again, we encourage you to go and read Lillian's entire article. Really good stuff as always. And Lillian, thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for inviting me.
To hear more from Lillian, subscribe and listen worldwide to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, weekdays at 8 a.m., noon, 5 p.m., and Saturdays at 11 a.m. at whenyounneedafriend.com. And that's going to do it for this week on the Florida Today Show. Be sure to join us again next week for all the latest headlines in news, space, sports, education, and entertainment. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.